And we are live. So, I was saying at the end of yesterday's episode that we've been going down, Ryan and I, this weird sort of fucking serial killer rabbit hole. And there was a movie last week that we did called Night of the Hunter. We've been doing these. Ryan, you have these Criterion Collection films. So, among those are considered, some of the best movies of all time. And we started covering them. And so we did Night of the Hunter with Robert Mitchum about this guy who preys on the weak. He preys on women and children, weak women and small children. And then we went, and that was pretty dark. I mean, it wasn't what I thought it was going to be, but it was a good movie and it was beautifully shot. Charles Lofton, we talked about it.
Yeah.
But then we went further down the rabbit hole to 1931. And I'll be honest, I didn't think they made dark movies like that in 31. I honestly didn't. Because I mean, we've seen the Universal classics in 31 and 32 with Karloff, and all the way up to 41 where we were there the day before Halloween watching Cheney, and then we watched Claude Rains in 33 with The Invisible Man, and you think that's as dark as it gets. But I'm always saying when I'm watching movies that what people do is actually much scarier for me than anything supernatural.
Oh, yeah.
And so this movie Night of the Hunter didn't grab me all that much, although clearly, Robert Mitchum played an evil guy. But this was like another level entirely. And we're talking about Fritz Lang's M. So if you're ready, I guess we can get it going. You good?
Let's do it.
Boogie woogie.
Wow, nice new intro there. That's cool.
It was just fooling around. I have to edit some of the audio volume from Adobe, and then I changed the pixelation on the screen to get it.
That's cool. Now, are those all movies on here?
Say again.
Are those all movies that we've covered in the podcast?
No, not all.
Okay.
They're all movies that either we have covered or that I want to cover. I think you saw the one with the girl who's got the blood all over her face.
Yeah.
That's a movie that I'm dying to cover. That I'm in the process of setting up with someone else outside the normal circle called Let the Right One In.
Okay.
But you've got the Changeling in there, and you've got the Dead Zone, and you've got Hereditary, and you've got the Others, and you've got we didn't do Bill Paxton yet with Frailty, so he's in there, and you've got Scary Stories to Tell in the Dark, and you've got Wolf. So a lot of them we have. There are in a
what
few
was that?
We have not.
What was that one at the end? I kind of laughed with that weird, like, fat thing in the hallway.
That's Scary Stories to Tell in the Dark. That's that Guillermo del Toro produced. That's a phenomenal movie.
Yeah. No, I kind of snickered when I saw it, just because it looks goofy, but
Oh, hold on a second. We got someone. Eric is here. He's
in
the house.
Eric.
What's up, Eric, man? Evening to you as well. Thanks for stopping into the stream. So, I
Good
mean,
evening.
speaking of things that are not funny, this particular movie tells the story of a serial killer who murders children. He's a child serial killer, not exactly based on any one particular killer. My understanding is Fritz Lang was aware, or in Germany at that time, there were several serial killers on the loose at the time. But this particular serial killer has murdered 9 children, and you get to witness the implied murder.
Yeah.
You don't actually see it, of the 9th child, this girl,
Yeah.
Elsie.
Elsie
And
Beckman. Yeah.
yeah, and I don't know if exactly this is, but I mean, it's awful and it's cringy,
Yeah.
and
It's a really sad. It's sad. I mean, and you see,
it's uncomfortable.
yeah, it's very uncomfortable. And
Yeah,
and the serial killer is named Hans Beckert, who is played by Peter Lorre, the great
yeah,
Peter Lorre.
yeah.
This was his like kind of breakout role. From what I read, he had done comedies up to this point,
Hmm.
and this was his first foray into horror, into the roles that really solidified his career. And yeah, that scene, that's just it's an uncomfortable scene,
Well,
and
the whole thing is very uncomfortable.
it is, yeah,
Because
yeah,
Laurie is, I mean, I'm trying to find a decent picture of Laurie here. Um, he
yeah.
plays the way he plays it, and Laurie, his physicality, it's this very sweaty, and he always sort of plays this way, this sort of sweaty. He's not physically like a physically attractive, like leading man kind of,
No, he's not.
look. He's this short, overweight, gelatinous kind of,
He's this pudgy
he's got
guy.
this
Yeah,
build and he's playing it sweaty,
yeah.
and you're just,
And he has those pop eyes too.
yeah,
Those big,
it's very
yeah,
uncomfortable to see him, um, um, you know, period.
yeah,
There's no other way around it. And it starts off with this 9th murder of this child, Elsie. And by the time you get to the 9th murder, we find out that this city in Germany, I think it's 4.5 million people, has essentially been brought to a standstill
yeah,
by these murders. And so the police, for all their efforts, and the police are competent, they're not, incompetent police or anything like that, are just unable to catch this man. It's like
hmm,
it's a needle in a stack of needles, and they don't have
yeah,
any leads or any clues or anything like that. And so what
hmm,
ends up happening is that the organized crime bosses end
yeah,
up assembling, and saying, this has to stop, for 2 reasons. And I was talking about this a little bit last night. One, there are so many police on the streets, they can't conduct business.
no,
And two, and probably most importantly, you find that, there's a differentiation between gangsters and serial killers. Sure, gangsters may be violent, they rob, they steal, maybe they'll kill someone, but they don't target small children.
no. They have a
Um,
code.
yeah, they don't target little girls. And I think this
No,
guy exclusively has been murdering little girls in what
yeah.
appears to be almost like a sexual kind of urge.
I think it is. Yeah, yeah,
It's profoundly disturbing. Like I was saying, I think I said this before we went on. I wasn't aware that in 31 they were making, and it's not common.
hmm,
They weren't making dark movies like this. This is far
no,
darker than anything Universal was doing at the time,
yeah,
or any of their mysteries, the Charlie Chan mysteries, or any of
hmm.
that kind of
Well,
silliness.
yeah. It's well, what else I think adds to the bleakness of this movie is there was no music at all. This was, I believe, this was Fritz Lang's first talkie because
It is, yeah,
he had done
yeah.
silent films, and he was famous for the. I said this before. He made the very famous sci-fi silent film Metropolis,
Hmm.
and this is there's dialogue, obviously, but there's no music and there's very little sound effects.
Yeah.
You know, I think
The-
that adds to it. It's almost I felt kind of like almost like closed in a little bit.
yeah, it's
You know,
claustrophobic.
yeah, yeah.
It's
Um,
claustrophobic.
be-
There are these for 31. You would think that there would be extended periods of dialogue, but it goes for long extended scenes where there's just absolutely no dialogue whatsoever. It
mm-mm.
almost plays out like a silent film, except that silent films always have that gaudy sort of background music.
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
Going in the
yeah.
background. And you and I, a few weeks ago, before the power outage, were looking at Cheney Senior in the Phantom of the
Hmm.
Opera,
Yeah,
and I was you weren't as comfortable with it, but I was perfectly content to watch that with no music
yeah,
because visually it's just arresting, and I find the gaudy music. And I said the same thing about Nosferatu when we watched it.
yeah,
It sort of detracts from the seriousness to me of the film.
yeah, yeah.
This doesn't have that, and it's a
No.
talkie film. It's a
Hmm.
it has an audio track, it has dialogue, and it's profoundly upsetting. It's an upsetting film to watch.
It is.
The
Yeah.
subject material, it's unrelenting. It's not terrible. I'm trying to think. I don't want to say it's humorless, but there's very little humor in it.
No, I didn't. I really
Was,
didn't
was there
notice.
any humor?
I didn't. Maybe I didn't
Maybe
really notice any.
inadvertent humor, maybe amongst the gangsters, but
I
I don't
think,
seem
and
to
like,
recall any.
no, I think when those people in the tavern were making fun of the detective, I think a little bit there, but nothing. It wasn't. It's not supposed to be a funny. It's a serious,
No,
like you said.
yeah.
It's a very bleak movie.
It's bleak and it's for a mature audience.
Yeah, and if you want to do a compare and contrast between Hans Beckert and Reverend Harry Pell, Hans Beckert is a a lower creature than he even than Harry Pell. He's a little scared weakling.
Yeah,
Yeah, and he
yeah,
preys on these girls, and yeah, there is this kind of sexual urge,
yeah,
and like and he always and his calling card is whistling that
yeah,
in the Hall of the Mountain King.
yeah,
And that scene where he's following that other girl who was might end up being his 10th victim, but
yeah,
like she runs into her mother or something, and then he has to like fight off the urge by going across the street and having a drink.
yeah,
You know
yes,
that
yeah, yeah.
um
He has to decompress.
yeah, yeah.
Like he sees her, and you see this look come over his face, like he's just
Yeah.
aroused.
Yeah.
And
But
like
he
it's uncomfortable a little bit to talk about.
Yeah, I know.
Because
Yeah, there is.
it's a little. You're like, oh, this is
Yeah.
disturbing. Um,
Yeah.
Lang, um, he received a lot of threatening letters
Really?
when he announced that he was making a movie about a child murderer.
Wow.
This wasn't a common topic
No.
in silent film and certainly not in talkies. And we talked about the second episode we ever did was Lugosi's Dracula, and we talked about how in the Universal world, the actors had almost this sort of flamboyant, over the
Mhm.
top kind
Yeah.
of thing
Well, it
going
was
on, but like
yeah.
Lugosi was, this, and he kind of like everything kind of ground to a halt when he hit the room. But here, they're doing, spoken, they're doing dialogue movies in Germany completely differently.
Well, because I think it was more realistic. The Universal stuff had more of a theatricality to it. Especially like with Lugosi and stuff. You got to remember that Dracula was a play that the movie was based on, or yeah, I think, and Lugosi was in that too. So
Yeah,
he
he
was
had
just
played it 1,000 times already.
yeah, yeah. So that very theatrical, but this was and the subject matter. This was grounded in realism.
Yeah.
You
Yeah,
know,
he had actually Fritz Lang actually went to psychiatric hospitals and interviewed
wow.
child murderers,
Oh gosh,
which is why
wow.
he seems to get it right. I mean, I've never
Hmm.
met any child murderers that I'm aware of. He also apparently got the underworld completely right. I think he hired, there were lots of criminals that he hired as extras. Um,
Wow.
and I think during the course of 6 weeks of filming, there were like over 25 arrests. Because these
Jeez.
guys were criminals. So
Yeah.
in between breaks, cut. Okay, let's go out and
You
commit
got to
some
go on the
crime.
paddy wagon. Yeah.
Here's the crime. Here's the
Yeah.
crime.
Yeah.
He had let's see, what else did he do? Oh, he was denied access even to studios to film because this occurred during the backdrop of the rise of the Nazi Party
Yep.
in
Yeah.
Germany. And a lot of people were paranoid that Lang was making a movie that was going to portray Laurie as a Nazi. And so it would detract from the image that the Nazi Party was trying to project. Whereas, this subversive sort of, outsider was saying, which he wasn't trying to do.
Yeah.
He wasn't trying to do that. But he was, he went to, he confronted people. He's like, why wouldn't you let me have a studio? And they're like, hey, we're in the Nazi Party. We're not, this isn't the kind of message that we want to, have placed out now.
It's interesting that you mentioned that because I read that the one guy who played the one criminal safecracker, the lead guy,
yeah,
he ended up, I think, he led a theater group and they were prominent during the Nazi regime. I think he actually ended up becoming a Nazi by proxy.
There's a lot more going on in Germany at this time in 31 than there is at the Universal Studios.
I think I read that he did by proxy become a Nazi because his theater company was really big in Germany and they would put on shows and all this stuff. And then I think afterward he went through what was called the denazification of Germany. And I think he was basically like pardoned, because he wasn't involved in anything. Obviously, he wasn't involved in any of the heinous crap they were doing.
Right, he wasn't a war criminal.
No. But I thought that was interesting. But now, M, as we know, the title M is for murderer, and that's what it means. And it's funny. And what's funny too is Hans Beckert gets caught pretty quick. I mean. Yeah. And they put the M, they hire the balloon salesman recognizes him. The blind balloon salesman recognizes him. And what's also cool about the gangsters is, well, not cool, but you know what I mean, is they have that network of like homeless guys.
Yeah.
Spying for them. They're kind of their network. It's almost like in Oliver Twist, where Fagin has his network of homeless boys who like do his dirty work for him and stuff like that.
And I was telling you when we were talking about this last week that this is exactly how the mafia runs the beggars in India.
Yeah.
You can't go out and beg on the street without the mafia, giving you permission to work that particular corner.
Yeah, and them getting a cut.
Like a roach, they get a cut of it, and everything like that. And they said that his portrayal of, how he, pictured organized crime, that these guys were almost like CEOs.
Yeah.
Was extremely accurate. And what they end up doing is using the beggars on the street, who are people that no one notices. You pass by beggars every day in the street, but they're a network. It's they know each other and they communicate with each other, and so they become the eyes and ears of the street, looking for anything suspicious. Because what we see earlier in the movie is that even friends have begun to turn on each other.
Yeah.
I saw you look at that person, and like it's almost almost comic and laughable, but this was actually happening, in that people were confronting each other on the street. That one side where that old man gets beat up, because he was talking to some kid, like in passing.
Anybody who talks to a kid was a prime target. Yeah. Well, anyway, the balloon guy, as we know, was part of the beggar group, and he knew what kind of balloon that Beckert bought for Elsie to lure her into his trap so he could murder her. And so the kid so that his assistant has the M painted on his hand, and he goes up to Beckert and slaps him on the shoulder because
Yeah,
Beckert has another girl with him.
yeah,
And yeah, he meets that little girl, and then she's like, "Oh, you have something on you," and that's when he notices, and from that point on, he's like a deer in the headlights. He is a
yeah.
scared little man,
Well,
and
he never comes off. And again, he's even a lower form than Robert Mitchum
yeah, yeah,
was. Because with Mitchum there was no
no,
sexuality whatsoever.
no,
He
no,
was almost like
he
a
hated
frigid.
women.
Yeah, he was a
Yeah,
frigid kind of. Whereas this guy almost it doesn't say that he's sexually assaulting. It's saying that he's murdering. But I mean, when you see that one scene where he sees that girl, he really plays it to the max. I mean, it's a fantastic performance by
yeah,
Laurie.
yeah, yeah.
And that scene where he looks over his shoulder and
Hmm.
sees the M is probably one of the more iconic scenes in film.
Yeah,
I
yeah.
had never recognized it before, I had seen that scene many times.
Oh, really?
I had never realized that was Peter Lorre, or that
Hmm.
it had anything to do with this film,
I
or for
didn't.
that matter, what that film was about.
I didn't know that was an iconic scene because I'd never seen this at
Oh,
all. So,
yeah, that scene where he looks in the mirror and he sees that thing on his shoulder.
oh, okay.
Yeah,
So yeah, and that's the thing. Like from that point on, the mob's after him, and they corner him in that office building, and he spends a lot of the movie just hiding. And
yeah,
that's the thing. Like he's not like yeah, he's way weaker than Harry Powell in that respect. Like Harry Powell wouldn't just hide. This guy's a meek little and he spends the most of the movie hiding. You know.
well, we should say, that it takes a good 35 minutes into
Yeah.
this. Like, nothing happens for the first 35 minutes. And I
Yeah.
remember sitting there watching this, and I'm like, wow, I wasn't impressed at all. And then all of a sudden, the ideas from the criminals come together, and then it just kind of takes off.
Yeah.
The movie
Yeah.
sort of takes off and forms this life of its own, and then all of a sudden, this guy goes from being untouchable,
Mm-hmm.
to suddenly he's just like the whole city like starts to close on him,
Yeah.
like a
Yeah.
trap. Except that
Yeah.
it's like the underbelly of the city starts
Yeah.
to close on him. It's not
Mm-hmm.
the police, it's not the establishment, it's not everyday citizens.
Yeah.
So this hunt is going on throughout the city, but no one's paying attention. Like
No.
like the police have no idea that all of this is happening,
No.
because it's being conducted by the underworld, by the
Yeah.
beggars and by the criminals. There's this manhunt going on in the city, and it's yeah,
Yeah.
it's really something once it takes off. I mean, that last hour is just nonstop.
Well, and what I thought was interesting too is that it was when they finally, do catch him
Yeah,
and that kangaroo court that they set up
yeah,
and put him on trial and
yeah,
and that's all made up of the criminals, the mob
yeah,
guys and the informants and townsfolk,
yeah.
and who want this guy. This
Everyday
is
people.
Yeah, this is mob justice.
Yeah,
This is like a lynch mob almost.
yeah,
And, you know, but what they managed to do, and, Peter Lorre makes it work, is that he makes Beckert into this sympathetic
yeah,
character. You know,
yeah.
Harry Powell, we hate from day one. He's not a redeemable character
No,
in any way, shape, or form.
no.
But Beckert he has a problem.
Yeah,
And he,
he's so profoundly damaged,
yeah,
like
yeah,
in his spirit and in his soul, and just he humanizes himself.
yeah. And he knows he has a problem,
Yeah,
you know?
he knows he's a sick and wretched man,
Yeah,
but he doesn't know how to stop.
yeah. And he doesn't make any excuses for himself,
No,
you know?
no, he
Um,
doesn't.
yeah,
And
yeah,
it's such when he finally starts to open up and talk, and he's like, because at first he tries to deny, you've got the wrong
Yeah.
person. It's
Yeah.
not
Yeah.
me. This, that, or the other. But then he realizes, that's not going to work, and he actually starts to talk, and it's such a visceral performance
Oh yeah. Yeah.
in front of all those other criminals,
Mm-hmm.
that he's in a completely different category. None
Yeah.
of those criminals are struck by, this crisis of conscience over, what it is that they do, every day of the year.
Yeah.
But this man is just like, you know, it wouldn't be a stretch to say that he wants to die.
Yeah. That's
You
I
know,
agree. I think
I think if you were to just, like if someone were to just put him out of his misery,
yeah.
he wouldn't. And I think, I could see now after doing the research that Lang really had gone to these hospitals and talked to these child murderers,
Yeah.
who, it's this profound thing that, we say all the time, that no one is 100% evil,
Yeah.
because that's The Exorcist,
Mm-hmm.
and well, and
Yeah,
whatever,
I know
some
what
of
you mean.
these serial killers, but
Yeah.
and no one is 100%. He's aware.
Yeah.
He's aware of how awful what he's doing actually is.
Mm-hmm.
And he doesn't know what to do.
Yeah, he has that hole that he needs to fill,
Yeah,
you know? And yeah, he's just a broken man.
yeah.
And I don't recall in his speech if he I don't recall if he said like how it started or whatever.
I don't
I
think he did. I
I
don't
don't
think he
think
did.
yeah, he just kind of laid it all out there and and that was
What
it.
it's like to be like, yeah, well, this is a day in my life.
And what it's like to live with this
Yeah,
and it's that and that he doesn't want to kill these girls but he has this urge
yeah. He just and
and
then he said he doesn't remember, and then
it's like he blacks out. Yeah.
yeah, he
Yeah.
goes into like this fugue state, and then he doesn't remember, and then he'll read about it in the paper, and he's like, I couldn't have done that.
Yeah. Yeah.
That can't be me.
Mhm. Yeah.
Because like, he like rents a house, and he seems to have an interesting, or like a friendly relationship with his landlord.
Yeah.
He's been there for quite a while. He has been in a psychiatric hospital. He's been released, I think.
Yeah.
But I mean, he seems on the surface to be able to conduct, a seemingly, a surface, rational existence.
Yeah, but we
But then,
see no, I was going to say, but we do see little instances like that one scene where he's like in front of the mirror and making those weird
yeah,
faces and stuff. It's
yeah,
like, okay,
yeah.
this guy's a
He's
little
not
off.
well. He's not
Yeah,
well.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, and it's beyond. I mean, that's putting it gently. I mean,
Hmm.
he's murdered 9 children, and he's targeting little girls to kill them.
Yeah,
Um, it's as bad as it gets. But his performance is so profound, that you're able to. I don't know if it's sympathize or empathize. Maybe
yeah,
both.
yeah,
But he is just. It's a once in a lifetime performance.
yeah.
And
It's
then play something like that, because that's not something that gets covered much in you know in film.
no, it's not.
Pedophilia or a child murder.
No, because nobody wants. It's an uncomfortable subject. Nobody wants to
Yeah,
touch that.
yeah. I think Kevin Bacon did it one time. He actually played a pedophile who'd been released from prison and was trying to start over his life, like had gone through significant treatment while in
Oh,
prison.
okay.
And I think it's called The Woodsman, if I'm not
Oh,
mistaken, because I think he would take, whatever. But it's not a common, it's not a comfortable topic. It's not a common topic.
yeah,
Um, but I mean, it's a profound movie. Um,
yeah.
One of my favorite authors. And let me, before we get into that, the fact that this kangaroo court afforded him a defense
Yeah, yeah.
was something I hadn't anticipated. The fact that
No.
they allowed him to speak, like when they capture him, and then the cops find out that they took him out or whatever. I
Yeah,
just figured he was going to end up in a trash heap somewhere,
exactly. Yeah, yeah.
and everybody
In
was
the
just going to
trunk of
go
a
back to
car.
work. Yeah,
Yeah,
they threw him in the
yeah.
trunk. They wrapped him up in like a rug or a
Yeah,
blanket or
they did. They
something.
hauled him out. Yeah, and
Yeah,
took him
and
to
then they threw him in
the
the
old
back of the
brewery.
car, and I figured
Yeah.
that that was just going to be it. They were just going to cut him into pieces, and that
Hmm.
would be the end of it. I didn't expect them actually to conduct a trial.
No, and my thing too is that I didn't expect him to even listen to his defense.
Yeah,
This he was just some dude that they found to defend him. And the guy actually, like, I thought it was going to be one of those, like, where the guy's just like the guy defending him is just like, whatever, it's a lost
interests.
cause. But
Yeah,
he actually, like,
yeah,
defended him,
yeah.
you know?
Well, there's the idea that this, with the rise of Nazism and the Weimar Republic, these things were happening at the time, and that there was this argument regarding the death penalty.
Oh,
Did the state, did Germany have the right to actually just, the government, did the
yeah.
government have a right to just, take a person's life?
Hmm.
And they're assuming that Lang came down on the side of no.
Hmm.
That,
Yeah.
that was profound government overreach.
Yeah. Yeah.
And the fact that, this defense lawyer was able to bring up that I think the guy who ran the kangaroo court, had been charged 4 times with manslaughter.
Well, that's what Beckert brought up when they brought him in. Peter Lorre says, "Yeah, how many people have you killed?" kind of thing like that, or
Yeah,
something like that. Yeah,
yeah,
yeah. So he's like, "You shouldn't talk because you murdered people too." But again, it's that code. There, murdering kids
yeah.
is not cool.
That's a
Excuse me, by
taboo.
any.
That's a
Yeah,
profound taboo.
yeah.
Um,
Organized crime guys don't do that stuff. So
yeah, and there, it's also crime that you can't understand.
Mm-mm. No.
And I remember, and have you seen that show Mindhunter?
I've heard of it.
The Netflix series.
No, I haven't
It's
seen it yet.
based on the true story of the people who formed the behavioral science unit at the FBI and
Okay.
how it started. It is profoundly disturbing.
Wow, I'll bet.
And
Jeez.
it's this idea that the FBI was formed to hunt people like John Dillinger.
Mm-hmm.
Guy sleeps with your wife, you kill him. He cheats you in business, you kill him. These sorts of things. But what started to spring up out of nowhere was this idea that there could be, like Manson comes up, and this idea that there could be profound violence between strangers.
Okay.
And like they didn't understand it. Like I don't know, like you rob a bank, okay, the cops are going to chase you, you're going to shoot it out. Like law enforcement gets that. But then the 60s start to roll around, and the Manson thing starts to happen, and all these other, the Green River Killer, and all these, the rise of serial killers, and that like nobody understands why you would just do an extraordinarily horrible thing to a stranger, like someone you don't even know.
Yeah.
These sorts of things. And so, even among criminals, you rob a guy, you might have to kill him. Like they take that security guard, they rough him up just long enough for him to tell what he needs to tell, and then it's over with.
Mm-hmm.
Like they have to do that, to get the information, or they feel they have to do that.
Yeah,
but this is another thing that they just don't understand where this guy is coming from.
Mm-mm.
And I don't think that the court empathizes.
No,
and they're going to kill him.
Yeah. And ironically, he doesn't die.
Right. The cops actually intervene, and he is spared.
Yeah.
Or at least it's implied that way.
Yeah.
That he goes in front of a formal court, a court of law. And that's the one sentence that they use at the end. In the name of the law, we're coming to take you out of this. We're not going to allow you to, be lynched. So to speak.
And that I forget what the last line was in the movie, but it was Elsie's mother. And
the mothers.
She looks at the camera and I forget what she said. Yeah,
Yeah.
that's Elsie's mom in the middle there.
I think it's
And
all the. I think it was a number of mothers.
yeah, it's all, but the one speaking is I
Yeah.
think Elsie's mom.
Yeah.
And I forget what she said at the end, but it was an interesting way to end it. Like, we don't see what happens to Beckert.
No.
We just see this part of the trial, like they're awaiting the trial or something like that.
Yeah.
And that's that. I mean, and it's left ambiguous, I think, on purpose, because you can make your own assumptions as to what's going to happen to this guy. You know, he could either be spared and just serve life in prison, or be declared insane, or
Eltie's, I'm looking at it now. Her mother says no sentence will bring the dead children back, and the one has to keep closer watch over children.
Yeah.
Okay. And as it goes to black, she says, all of you.
Yeah.
You know, so that there is this responsibility, to safeguard these kids.
And like you said, because at that time too, there were a lot of serial killers running rampant. So that was kind of a little like, watch your kids, kind of thing, right to the audience. Yeah.
There's just so many things going on at the time in Germany that, it's so damn turbulent.
I know. I couldn't even imagine. I mean,
no, so it stands to reason, though, that they're not making supernatural horror movies.
Yeah.
Like, we have very real horror going on right now, in this country.
Yeah.
One of my favorite authors is Graham Greene.
Oh, yeah. Okay.
I love Graham Greene. He's one of my all-time favorite authors. And he did a review on this, and he said it compared the film to looking through the eyepiece of a microscope to which the tangled mind is exposed, laid flat on the slide. Love and lust, nobility and perversity, hatred of self, and despair jumping at you from the jelly. And I think that's pretty damn accurate, because Laurie's character is he hates himself.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
He hates himself. He's so filled with self-lothing that it's almost heartbreaking. Like, if you hadn't murdered if he hadn't, like, you almost forget for a second what he's actually done. He's just so damn wretched.
Yeah, he is. He's a wretched creature. He's like Gollum in that respect. This wretched creature.
That's really actually very accurate. Yeah.
Yeah.
He reminds me a lot of Gollum.
Yeah.
Excuse me.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, he kind of looked a little bit like Gollum there, but with the big eyes and stuff. But yeah, what a performance, though. I mean, and as we know, Peter Lorre did some decent movies after that. I mean, his big one after that was The Maltese Falcon. He did.
He doesn't last very long. The Nazis come and drag him out.
No, that's in Casablanca.
Oh, the Maltese Falcon. Okay.
With Bogart and yeah. And then he did, all his slew of horror movies. He did. I think his last one was that. What was the one? Oh gosh, it was a comedy. With like Karloff and Vincent Price, and let me see what it is. I want to see what his what that was. Peter Lorre's last movie.
The idea that what you're saying, is actually his filmography is actually a shame, because we're seeing here that he's actually like a fucking amazing actor.
Oh yeah.
But because probably of his looks. And he didn't look like Clark Gable or, whoever was the leading man of the time. He was typecast, as
in
this sort of...
Oh, yes. He was in Arsenic and Old Lace. He was in, his last movie was called A Comedy of Terrors. It was Vincent Price, Karloff, I think Basil Rathbone or something like that. And he actually, and then he had some posthumous releases. He was in Muscle Beach Party and The Patsy with Jerry Lewis. So yeah, his filmography kind of after
the 40s.
What you call it? After Casablanca, kind of because then he played Mr. Moto. He did all these movies where he kind of played this weird little guy. That was his, yeah, because of his looks. Yeah, he definitely had an iconic look. But you
I
know
think
what?
today
He
they'd probably find a much better use for him.
Yeah, but it was his, you know what? A lot of those guys, it was his bread and butter, and who knows? He might have had a
Yeah,
great time
yeah,
doing it,
yeah, yeah, yeah.
you
He
know?
might have. He might have.
And
Oh, go ahead.
no, I was going to say, and Fritz Lang, I'm looking at his filmography. Did you know he directed The Return of Frank James with
Yeah.
I didn't know that. He did a Western. I'm like, wow. Um, he did actually a lot of movies up until 1960. A lot of them look like they're like suspense movies and thrillers and stuff like that. But you know what? You do what you know. I mean, that's the thing. Um,
I'm looking at this review from Roger Ebert, and in '97 he added M to his
okay.
great movies list, which
Oh, nice.
I think that was considered a great honor.
Yeah, yeah.
To be
That's
added to
cool.
that list. And he said that Lang's limited use of dialogue was a critical factor in the film's success, in contrast with many early sound films, which, quote, felt they had to talk all the time, end quote. Ebert also argued that the film's characters, nearly all grotesques, embodied Lang's distaste for his adopted homeland. Quote, what
Mm.
I sense is that Lang hated the people around him, hated Nazism, and hated Germany for permitting it.
Huh. Wow. That's an interesting perspective. Well,
Hmm.
and then you have to think 2 years later is when Hitler came to power
Yeah.
in 33. And I think Lang got out. I think Laurie, all of them, I think got out of Germany before that happened. Yeah, before they, anything further happened. But that's an interesting perspective there from Ebert.
I don't see that there are many paths to take.
No.
There's not a wide variety of choice in 1931 Germany.
Mm-mm. No, there's not.
You're limited to a couple of options here, and you can either nut up and really say what you think, or you're just going to keep quiet and go along.
Yeah,
And I
yeah,
guess he used his particular artistic expression
yeah,
you know to say
yeah.
fuck off.
It said, yeah, he fled the Nazi regime
Mm.
and went to and came to America. So I can't even imagine like living under, like we were saying, under that, and just having that like over your shoulders constantly, like the danger that he must have faced. And Peter Lorre too, because if you weren't part of the Nazi party, you were, that was bad news for you.
Well, I
So
mean, I think you past a certain point, you see the writing on the wall, and you realize it's no longer
yeah,
safe. I mean,
yeah, yeah,
obviously, it was safe enough for him to make that movie, but
yeah.
he didn't last long after that.
No, no, he didn't.
So that's the way it
Um,
played out.
yeah, but
But he made a hell of a movie, and
yep,
as one of the first sound films. I mean, geez,
yeah,
what a
and
flick!
yeah,
What a flick! I like this better than Night of the Hunter.
and it's a different kind of movie.
Yeah,
Yeah. I think yes, atmospherically and story-wise, this is way more
yeah.
serious,
The tension is just it's
It's
palpable.
yeah, and it is, and you were right. It's a slow burn
Yeah,
until everything happens. But yes, and I agree with Ebert's assessment about the dialogue. It's used very sparingly.
yeah,
And I like his observation too about them all being grotesques.
yeah.
Yeah, there's no handsome people in this movie. They're all got the even the criminals. They're all um, there's a lot of rotund guys, and I mean, we have Peter Lorre and all these,
I think the only people who might be portrayed as beautiful per se are the kids.
yeah, yeah,
They have this sort of naive, angelic,
yeah,
sort of look going around, and
uh-huh,
so it's all the easier to just sort of sympathize and cringe,
yeah,
while you see them being sort of targeted.
yeah,
It's
yeah,
Yeah, it's a rough film, but I mean,
mhm,
it's considered one of the greatest films of all time. And
yep,
I would only say, if anybody's going to see it, if you haven't, it's not available for streaming right now. I don't think.
no,
Have
it's
you
hard to
checked?
find. Um, You know, I
It's
like I said,
criteria.
I got it through Criterion, so they have an entire they have 400 movies on there, like a lot of some foreign, some modern stuff.
It only seems to be it's streaming on Amazon, but you got to pay the $3.99.
Oh, okay,
So you
all
can
right,
find it streaming on Amazon if you don't want to just buy it. If you want to rent it for
yeah,
$3.99, you can do that, and
yeah,
it's worth it. I'm just letting you know up front. It's going to be about 35 minutes, a half hour before anything starts to happen.
yeah, yeah.
They take a long time to build the exposition.
Well, you know what, and I noticed that too. Was and I'm pointing this out now. I think part of that was Lang's attention to detail as far as the police were concerned.
Yeah,
The attention to, like, when they're going through the tavern, he spent a lot of time on, like, it's almost like a police procedural.
yeah, it is a procedural, and
Yeah.
that they're receiving the police is receiving, um, a lot of pressure from the national government to get
Mm-hmm.
something done, and the commissioner's
Yeah.
talking to the secretary that keeps calling him, some sort of
Yeah.
political office, and he's like, "We're doing everything we can, like
Yeah. Yeah.
we're doing everything,
Mm-hmm.
possible," and they were.
Yeah.
The police are not incompetent here. It's just
No.
they can't catch a break.
Yeah, they're not like the cops from The Invisible Man.
No,
I mean, these are competent
yeah,
professionals,
professional
and
police officers. Yeah,
yeah, yeah. I mean, I thought that was interesting too, because I don't know how many movies back then actually showed that kind of thing, where, like, it was really into detail like that, like you saw with the that it reminded me of Bullet. Bullet is like that, where it's very much like a procedural. You see all the detail that they go through and the stuff they, sorting through the evidence, and it's really interesting.
I was just watching on Netflix. There's a four episode series on there. They're about 40 minutes per episode. It's called Catching Killers. It's only 4 episodes, but they're real
Okay.
stories of real life serial killers in America and the
Hmm.
police officers that have caught these guys and girls and women in some cases.
Yeah.
There's a reason these people are so difficult to catch and that these cases go on for years.
Yeah.
Because again, you've just got things that don't make sense.
Yeah.
And this is way, I mean, 1931 is way before DNA. I
Yeah.
guess they had fingerprints back then, but this is way
Yeah, I
before
think they did. Yeah.
this is way before DNA evidence or blood or
Well, and
anything like that. And it's
yeah.
just it
And
must have
look
it
how
must have been awful. I mean, I'm watching this show, and you could see 30 years later, as these police are like now old or older men, revisiting, you can see the frustration.
yeah.
You can
Yeah.
see it, that they work so hard to try to catch these people, and they just can't keep stopping the killing until they just seem to get lucky. you
Yeah.
know
Well, look how long it took them to finally, if what I've read is true, to finally identify the Zodiac killer. I
I,
mean, if that's true.
that's another theory. It's like that guy who said he solved the Jack the Ripper case. I mean, it's just
Yeah, I think the Zodiac one is a little more believable, than the Jack the Ripper thing.
I
But
thought
no,
that
no, go ahead.
I thought that the Zodiac killer was Arthur Lee Allen. I mean, and once Arthur Lee Allen died,
Hmm.
all of the things that were happening around that time and the letters that were
Yeah,
being sent just kind of stopped. But
yeah, yeah,
you never know. You never know.
yeah.
I'm a
That's
little
true.
skeptical about that.
Hmm.
Well, I think that we've been going almost 15 minutes. I think this is a pretty good place to bring this to a close, if that's okay with you.
Yep.
My thanks to Brom Bones for stopping in again tonight and discussing some real horror
Yeah. Thank you. I
with us
appreciate it.
tonight. Yeah. Thank you. This will be our final show for the month of November. We're taking off next week for Thanksgiving, and we've all got shit to do, so that's going to take the priority. Lots to be thankful for this holiday week coming up.
Hmm.
We will be back on December 1st with our first ever top. Oh God, excuse me! I hit the pop filter with our first ever top 10 fantasy movies. The first half of that starts on December 1st. That should be something. And then no, oh wait, hold on. Yeah, that will be the only thing that we're doing for that week, because I think they're going to be more than that. That's going to be a bit of a
Yeah.
panel there.
It's going to be that's going to be a fun one.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So that will be the only one that we're doing that particular week. So
I'm
we'll
telling you. Yeah.
go ahead.
No, I was just going to say, man, that I'm trying to figure out my list, man. It's a hard one. This is going to be hard.
I've gotten John has sent me his list. I'm
Okay.
assuming yeah, but like it's like the first list.
Yeah.
What we did for Heart. You either
Yeah.
think too much about it, or you just make the list and don't think about it.
That's true. Yeah. Yeah.
John just sent me his list today, so I'm like, okay, yeah, that's great.
Okay.
I've got a list, and I think I'm good.
Okay.
So just send it when
I'll
you're ready.
send you my revised one. Yeah.
Yeah, just send it right before, so so we're
Yeah.
good. Just need like a day or two to put the the overlays and that stuff together.
Okay.
All right, that's it for the month of November. Thank you very much once again. A happy Thanksgiving to everybody out there in the States that's watching, and everyone abroad. All the best. We'll see you again on December 1st. And take care, everybody. Have a good one.